Now, Board Member McWaters, who voted against this budget proposal, has recommended having a budget hearings and also releasing the budget in advance so the industry can see it before the actual board meeting, before it's voted on. Do you support those two recommendations?
Uh, each board member is entitled to their own beliefs. I do not believe it's prudent to release our budget in advance or to hold hearings on our budget. Congress specifically provided the board with the statutory authority to determine how we expend our money. They gave us the authority to raise funds from the credit unions, but they specifically gave the board the authority to determine how the funds are spent. That's because they envisioned an independent regulator who can determine the needs of the agency based on the safety and soundness needs of the industry. I believe that providing that information to the trades really would result in regulatory capture, which is what existed previously. We had hearings on the budget. We reduced FTEs by a total of 71 in a 5-year period of time from 2003 to 2008. And when I came on in 2009, the industry was on the verge of collapse, and we didn't have the resources that we needed in order to really protect the industry. And so we were playing catch up. We immediately had to go from an 18-month exam cycle to a 12-month exam cycle. And we had to really wrestle with how to get there because we didn't have adequate staff. And there were some credit unions which failed or were on the verge of failing, which might have been saved or in better health if we had the resources to help them deal with the crisis before it occurred. And so, no, I don't envision us having a hearing as long as I'm the chairman, and I certainly don't envision us releasing our budget prior to the board meeting. I think it's important to have transparency. I believe we are an extremely transparent regulatory agency, and in fact, we provide much more information than our federal regulatory colleagues do. And I think providing beyond a certain point, I don't think it's useful, and I think it subjects us to regulatory capture, which is a very serious issue if you're a regulator.
You voted against the 2015 operating budget. Why did you decide to cast your vote no?
Well, I was dismayed by a number of factors. One was the overall increase in the budget, another 4.1 or 2 or 3 or 4, whatever percent it is. It seemed to change on a daily basis. The second was a general lack of transparency in the budget, although I will admit much improvement has been made. And third was we ought to involve the credit union community. We need to hear their comments. We need to hear what they have to say about the budget. I think it's very important.
You called for budget hearings for the future at the meeting. Why do you think there should be hearings on the budget?
Well, we are using other people's money, and it seems fair, it seems reasonable for people to look at the budget and come and present their thoughts on the budget to us in an open meeting. Now, trade associations meet with members of the board all the time, so we can have meetings behind closed doors, and they will bring up the budget. They can write us letters, and we respond to those letters. I believe the chair received one recently from Dan Berger over at NAFQ, and she sent a response back. So what is exactly this idea of regulatory capture? It seems to me that if you can have a public meeting where everything is on the record, everyone can see it, total, complete transparency, how in the world can that be something approaching regulatory capture when someone meeting in your office having the same comments, the same concerns is not regulatory capture? Plus, I believe the chair was a bit over-generous in her determination of what regulatory capture is. What's going on now with respect to Goldman Sachs and the Federal Reserve Bank of New York a woman who worked for the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, in effect recording conversations she had with other members of the bank concerning Goldman Sachs and other too big to fail financial institutions, is a wholly different level than the type of transparency I'm talking about. The people who write the checks ought to be able to walk into the boardroom and tell us what we think. When you look at our budget, 73% of it is employment costs. Those employment costs are principally examination. So if the people who are examined can come and they can speak to us and they can say, here's a way to improve the efficiency of the examination of your supervisory role, that will trickle through the budget, and the budget may go down or at least not go up by as much.
Whether to go through the stage of having a show me type hearing, I don't think is necessarily material. What is important is to take all information that people might offer and how we can be more efficient, which we do, and consider that and utilize that in making the budget framework in the first place.
In his statement, he mentioned that he voted against the budget proposal because the public didn't have a chance to comment. Is there a way that you would support, anyway, to have the public comment on the budget before it's approved?
Well, they can comment. I mean, anybody can write a letter or call on the budget now. That is far different than saying, let's put on a dog and pony show. I mean, the idea is people can comment on it. I don't know of any comments that's received, certainly in my office, that's material that's significant that I'm not going to address. And I would think every board member would be the same.
So there isn't a way for the budget to actually be released just to industry executives or anybody who's interested in looking at it, who's in the credit union industry, that you would support? Maybe an internal way, just a password-protected site or something?
No, to what end? I mean, we determine what the budget is based on our workflow analysis and our determination of what it takes to maintain the safety and soundness of the industry. And I just want to point out that we are much more transparent with our financials than credit unions are. Credit unions, by and large, release their financial statements, period, end of discussion. And any discussion of having federal chartered credit unions file 990s is usually met with alarm and horror. And they don't release even the most basic information about the salaries of their top management. They rely on their credit union members for their budget, just as we do. But we are much more transparent in the information that we provide to the public than they provide to their members. So, no, I don't see any purpose in releasing our budget in advance. And in fact, I think it would be dangerous. It would inhibit our ability to develop a safe and sound budget, and I think it would threaten the future of the industry.
Well, perhaps if the public saw it ahead of time, then I would be able to see it ahead of time also. Because you must understand that the board action memorandum make their way to my office very, very late in the process. That I'm working on information that to me may just be a few days old. So there is less time to react to it. I would also like more time to react to the meeting. Now, I need to be careful in saying that. I've had several meetings with Mary Ann and with Rendell, the outgoing CFO and the new CFO. They have been tremendous. I've made any number of comments regarding transparency. The budget, the BAM, if you go back and compare the last several years, has been pretty much a static document except for changes in the numbers. But I raised so many issues on transparency. The BAM is much longer now. The website is being reconfigured. A lot more links are being put in. Because when I started this process, I went and I looked at the website. I looked at all the links. I printed the stuff out, and I thought, this doesn't tell me much. There's a lot more there's a greater story that needs to be told. So that movement has been made, and I appreciate the chair supporting that, the vice chair supporting it, and the CFO supporting it. But I've rattled that cage for a long time. Plus, Nick, I've been a CPA for 35 years. I know something about budgets. I know something about the budgetary process. I'm an M&A deal lawyer. I've looked at financial statements since, early 1980s. I've been through the S&L crisis, the dot-com crisis, the LBO crisis, and the like. This is not as we'd say in Texas, my first rodeo.